I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mr. Bruno Aziza. He's going to talk to us about data hubs, fabrics, and how to make data simple. Bruno is the head of data and analytics at Google Cloud. He specializes in scaling businesses and turning them into global leaders. He is focused on high growth software as a service, enterprise software, everything data, analytics, data science, and AI. He was educated in the US, France, the UK, and Germany. He has written 2 books on data analytics and enterprise performance management. He also advises companies on how to grow high performance teams and scale businesses, regardless if they are a venture backed startup or a large enterprise software company. All right, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring Bruno up on our virtual stage here. Hello, Bruno. Welcome. Oh, look at that.
How you doing, Kate?
What a coincidence. The sun must be out. What has happened? We've got to have fun, right, Bruno?
Absolutely, yeah. So these are the smart glasses. Let me take a photo of you so we can remember this moment. These are the smart glasses that I use to do my weekly updates on everything data AI and analytics.
These are not my smart glasses. These are glasses that TCS sent me to wear for running. But Bruno, I really
you make them smart. You make them smart by wearing them, Kate. So don't worry about that.
Thank you so much. Yes, well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm going to hop off the stage and I'll be back in 10 minutes to ask you a bunch of questions. So feel free to go ahead and get started.
That sounds good. So hopefully you can see my slides. I've got 32 slides in less than 10 minutes. And so we're going to go pretty fast. I'm kidding. I do have 32 slides, but I'm not planning on covering all of them today. First of all, I want to give you the opportunity to make sure that we are not just talking today, that we also connecting beyond this presentation. And there are 3 ways you can find me online. The most obvious way is what we were just talking about with the sunglasses here. Every Sunday, I give an update on everything data AI and analytics from my car. We call it the CarCast. And so if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll be able to get that, and feel free to ping me. Anything that you find interesting that I should be highlighting, let me know. Second, as Kate noted, I write on Forbes every month, and I blog on a weekly basis as well. So you'll be able to follow me there. And then finally, if you want to hear stories about customers that are succeeding in the space of data analytics, we just launched a new program called Data Journeys. You can see here some of the guests already. Chief Data Officer from KeyBank, Mike Onders, and you can see many of the other personalities we invited to share with us essentially what they're seeing in the space and how they're able to succeed. I'll let you take a look at that. I'm assuming Kate will also publish the decks, so you'll get access to all these links. What are customers telling us today? It's pretty straightforward, and you're probably seeing it yourself. There's undeniable trends in the industry, and they're very simple. We have more data, more user, more use cases. You know that there's a huge proliferation of information. I'm sure everybody else has talked to you about that. You know that you have the opportunity to make data accessible to a lot more folks, but you also know that just making it accessible without really a purpose requires that you have to think about what are the use cases that we not just pilot, but we actually bring into production. The issues that we see and we talk to customers about at scale is that they're running into these 3 issues, and these are kind of goals that they want to deal with, is breaking down the silos, not just looking at data in the past, but looking at data in the future and being able to be in control of their future, and then finally making data accessible to everyone. Now, that sounds great, but there are 3 types of issues customers are dealing with. One is the level of maturity. One of the big reasons for why we're here today is that how do you elevate the maturity of your team, your infrastructure, as well as the technology that you use. When we talk about silos, the reality is that, yes, many of you are moving from on-prem to the cloud, but you might be moving to hybrid environments, on-prem plus cloud, multiple on-prem plus multiple cloud. So how do you think about governance around that? We're going to talk a lot about data hubs and data fabric in this section. And then finally, how do you handle the complexity, not just of the data, but the ecosystem's complexity? If you just looked at this past week, in fact, I was pointing you in my Forbes piece. This month, I covered the big data landscape that Matt Turk had published. If you have not read this piece, you'll find that there are a lot of organizations that you need to take a look at and consider as you move into your modern data stack. Just So you compare it to the very first iteration of this landscape. This is what it looked like about 8 years ago. So if you're not convinced of the complexity and the fast running and fast creation of organizations that can enable your business, just take a look at those and you'll be able to notice kind of the big differences in our space. And it's not just in our space, by the way. This is true just across the board. IDC said that by 2023, over 500 million digital applications and services will be developed and deployed using cloud native approaches, particularly taking advantage of low code, no code. If you look at the MarTech business, there's 8,000 of them today, and in 2011, there's only 150. So the reality of our world is that you want this. You want simplicity. You want an interface that you don't have to train people on. But the reality is that this is what you get. So how do you go from this complex world here that you're looking at to the simple interface that we talked about here, of course, at Google? We've been doing this for decades, where we're taking the complex world, fast-moving, highly disconnected data points and information across the internet, and then making it accessible through one simple interface that anybody can use, right? And the only thing that really is between those two things to go from complexity to simplicity is exceptional intelligence and exceptional personalization and context setting. If you didn't like the ball from before, this is what it looks like for any organization today. You're dealing with data warehousing, data lakes, data marts, databases, and you're starting to set up some semantics, you're starting to set up some organization, but quickly as you're making changes, things are becoming a nightmare to manage. And this is where the concept of the data fabric, of the data mesh come together. Now, how do you get there is really the big question for many of us. Can you just get a data mesh or data fabric going tomorrow? And the reality is that what we're seeing today is that organizations kind of evolve through at least 3 stages in their maturity. The first one is this idea of the data ocean. And the data ocean is kind of an evolution beyond the data lake. You know, what I like about the data ocean is that it's open-ended, and it's open-ended for discovery. A data lake is kind of closed out inland sometimes. But the idea is that you've now found places, landing zones, where all your data can be hosted in just about any format. And this is where you need a lot of choice. You need to be able to store data in a relational manner. You need to be able to store data as documents. You need to be able to think about all the formats that are required, open source, proprietary formats, so you can have your data in this data ocean. The next piece is the piece that is about building a data mesh. And the data mesh is really around a few key concepts. This idea that you can now centralize the data so you can govern it in a central manner. You have central definitions, metadata, security protocols you can use, but you can also decentralize the access to it. This is something Tom Davenport calls centralization of data and decentralization of analytics. This is an important consideration because when you think about centralizing data, it's going to enable you, of course, to govern it at scale, but it's also going to allow you to create better quality of your machine learning algorithms, because with more data, you get better results. But you also want to now be able to federate it out so people can now self-serve to that data, prepare it, augment it, do whatever they need that is relevant to their business. As we heard from the previous presenter, you know, a lot of what you need in order to succeed is business context. You know, 1 data point is important, 2 data points is probably more important, but the data points by themselves without the business context can't really enable you to advance your business. Ultimately, beyond the data fabric and the data mesh concept, companies evolve to what we call the data ecosystem, where now you're doing more sophisticated work. You might be sharing data at scale. The issue with sharing data today, we know, is very difficult to share the data and not having to copy it, and also share more than data. What we believe in is going to happen in the next 5 years is that organizations are going to use data sharing platforms to share analytics. So they'll share the data, but also share the results of the models and the rich data applications they've built on top of it. They want to get people closer to the final result that data have. If you think about the old way of data sharing, it was very much like giving someone a gift card. Here is a data set, and you got do a lot of work before you can get to value. Kind of the same idea of a gift card. Here's an errand that you got to go and run. And so the future of data ecosystems is going to be inclusive, data sharing at scale, and analytics sharing at scale. So I really want to invite you to kind of think about that beyond the data hubs. Now, there are a lot of more resources that are available to you in order to understand this concept of data architecture, data mesh, and how, my favorite quote here on this slide is how you can take care of the complexity without creating complications for your organization. So this is research from Wayne Eckerson and his team. It's probably one of the best pieces of research on data hubs and data mesh. And then, of course, McKinsey and company have started kind of sharing kind of what are the transformations you need to go through in order to establish a data hub and simplify access to data. There's 6, the first one we talked about, going from on-prem to cloud, batch to real-time, going from pre-integrated to modular, decoupling data access, domain-based architecture, and extensible frameworks are some of the key concepts you got to think about. Of course, we can't cover all of that in 10 minutes, but what I thought I would give you at least some pointers on the key research pieces that you could take a look at. And then finally, of course, if you want to go to the genesis of all this, this is a great paper to read by the inventor of the term, the data mesh. She's also going to have a book in January, so I want to kind of invite you to connect with her and take a look at the book. More important than anything, I also want to invite you to think about how all this work relates to your environment and how you want to build with agility first. So think about the example earlier where I showed the google.com webpage. That's the end result. So while the technology and the architecture diagrams are important, you're trying to enable a simple liquid relationship with data, highly personalized, highly contextual. So remember on the way there, this is probably my closing slide here. Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. If you haven't been able to read the sentence here on that t-shirt, in other words, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So read the research, think about the context for data mesh and simplifying kind of access to data while you govern it centrally, and then take a look at these research pieces. And if there's anything I can do to help, of course, reach out to me as I explained on LinkedIn. Before I hand it over to Kate, I want to quickly fly by you some additional resources I have added to this deck for you, which are all architecture diagrams that enable you how to do all of what I've talked about using the Google Cloud technology. They are what I call simplifiers. They're great ways for you to understand the technology and quickly ramp up on how we can help you make data simple for your organization. Kate?
Yes, you said my name. I'm here. How's it going?
I think I'm done. I think I did it in the allotted 10 minutes.
Yes, you did, Bruno. Thank you so much. That was jam-packed of great insights. We have a lot of questions for you. I know we don't have too much time, but we still have time to take a couple. Yes? You're still?
Absolutely.
All right. We're going to start with an easy one from Ravit. Where is your car? I heard you do these shows from your car, so lots of questions about your car here.
Yeah, so my car is downstairs, but I think what he's referring to is the picture here. Let me see if you can see it on the bottom left is the CarCast that I do. So what I do is I try to provide a service to the community. Last week's episode was 111. So I've been doing that every weekend without interruption for over 2 years. And it started with working with Chief Data Officer who's telling me, look, the space is super overwhelming. I don't know what's important. If somebody could summarize for me every week the top 5 things, that'd be super helpful. And so I started doing that. And since then, the community every week just sends me articles and things that they think is relevant. This is not for vendors to use that as a marketing tool. This is really a service for the community to help each other. So if you're in the audience now and you've got things that you think you want me to talk about, don't hesitate. Connect with me on LinkedIn and send me that stuff. And I'll do my best to highlight it every Sunday night.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Next question is from Mike. He says, at Google, you deal with clients with huge data sets. Does a larger data set need a different mindset or approach?
That's right. So we do deal with some of the largest scale issues in the industry. I mean, we've got great customers like Twitter and the Home Depot, an insane amount of scale required, not just scale of data, but the speed as well as which that they need to be able to make decisions. I would say that, if you had asked me that question 10 years ago, I'd say probably, but I would say that right now, everybody's got a big data problem, right? So in fact, we should probably just remove the big from data. Every data you have is big because, the opportunity that you have to work with information is just out of imagination right now. If you think, there's two vectors to look at. If you think about inside your company walls, are you capturing absolutely everything that you think would be required to make a decision? The answer to that is, we know that 2/3 of the information that's produced by your organization is not being recorded, not being used or analyzed. I think we end up analyzing about 5% of the information that actually is even in existence. That's inside your walls. If you now start thinking about the information that you need outside your wall, right? Just for us, let's say that tomorrow we have a company and we're trying to partner. I'm a retailer and you're a logistics partner, and you want to be able to share data with me. Now that's a whole body of work and a whole body of data that is available for you to take a look at, merge, add to your analysis that we're now doing today. In fact, the graphic that I use is something a customer gave me. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on camera.
Okay,
Customer at Lloyd's Bank drew this for me, and he said, this up here is your company data. All of this is your partner's data. It's the opportunity you have to work with more information. So I would say, to your question, no, same mindset. You're already in the big data business, and you want to build day one for scale, because there is no downside to it, especially now where storage and compute is so much cheaper than it was, maybe a year ago.
Right. I love the visual you just shared, because it'll be interesting to see what's the world of data, right? You need a really big post it for that one, and also the data that people actually end up using within the company. Yeah. So very, very interesting visual. Next question here is going multi-cloud a good strategy?
Absolutely. So I think there's research in the market that shows that about 70 or plus % of organizations have a multi-cloud strategy today, and it's going up to 90% for the future. And so I think, again, it's the reality of, your business. Of course, if you're hearing this from me as Google, you're thinking, I want you to have all your data into my cloud. The reality, though, as someone that's been in the space, is I know that by default, the minute you start partnering with other companies, they might have made different cloud decisions. And so the question is, how can we enable an architecture that is modern enough so you can use data from just about any cloud? For sure, moving to the cloud is absolutely, in our space, the trend. I think Gartner said 75% of database are going to be in the cloud in the next few years. So if you've missed that train, I would try to get to that as fast as possible. But it didn't say everything in one cloud. They said that likely we'll have a multi-cloud environment for a long time. So if I were you, I'd look to partner with the vendor that has the best multi-cloud strategy, because that's going to be your reality.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Phil's asking if the presentation will be available. I was actually going to propose, if you can post the slides as a document on LinkedIn. I think that might be the easiest way for folks to first find you, right, and then follow you on LinkedIn. And I know you can download things once you've uploaded them as a document.
Absolutely. I will post that on my profile. So just come look for me, and then you'll be able to download it right from there. From SlideShare, I think is easiest.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then I'll take one last question here from David about data mesh and data sharing at scale. Is there any particular tool, oh, this is funny, in order to accomplish this, from Google Cloud maybe? What is your preference, Bruno?
Well, David, I don't know if you work for Google, but thanks for the question. Yeah, absolutely. There are two products I would suggest you take a look at. One is a product called Dataplex, which is our intelligent data fabric product. You'll hear a lot about it next week at the Google Next event, which is happening October 12th. This is a product we introduced a few months ago, back in May. I think it was May 26th, if I remember correctly. And then finally, there's another product you should look at called Analytics Hub, which is designed to enable organizations to share analytics assets internally and externally in a secured manner and at scale. So absolutely, two products to look at: Analytics Hub, Dataplex, and then, of course, the key product to look at for storing your data at scale is Google BigQuery, is what I would look at.
Okay, awesome. Well, Bruno, thank you so much for your time here. I will see you online, guys. As a reminder, again, follow Bruno Aziza on LinkedIn, and are you on Instagram as well? I think you are.
I'm not really active on Instagram. LinkedIn is really the place. I mean, if you look like I do, you probably don't want to spend as much time on Instagram. So
I think I've seen you there. Maybe Bernard Mars posted something.
Maybe so, yeah. I'm on LinkedIn most of the time. But thanks for having me, and I'm excited to be engaged with their community. And hopefully this was helpful to them today.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much, Bruno.